Welcome to the Customer Success Playbook PostGame show, where Kevin and I talk about our recent episode, discuss the insights that our guests shared with us, and then give our perspective on the conversation. Kev, we just had Ed Powers on. Ed was a terrific guest. He talked to us about data-driven decision-making in customer success. I'll jump right in, Kev, because I really enjoyed this conversation. One thing he talked about is customer health scores, right? And he talked about how he said there's 4 ways companies are doing these today. They're starting with the red, green, yellow subjective health scores, right? Just how do you feel the customer's doing? That being like the bottom of the scale, all the way up to input all of these variables and let the data decide what's predictive of a customer outcome, right? So don't go in. He said, some of the factors that you think will be important won't be, and some of them that you don't think are important will be as well. But let the data drive, and that's on the other spectrum. I thought that was really insightful. And again, he even said at the end, a lot of organizations still are on that early spectrum, which it's that subjective feel. How do you think they're doing approach?
Yeah, and from my experience, I think a lot of times things start out very, very on the subjective end, right? We got to get a red, green, yellow. What's doing it? And then somebody says, "Well, what are the factors we're using to determine red, green, yellow?" And then it's that iteration. Okay, so you've iterated from. He described it as 4 levels, right? You've got iteration 1 where it's pure gut. Iteration 2, it's all right, this is the reason why. And then iteration 3, well, we've got 3 or 4 reasons why we say the customer is red or green. And maybe some of those are measurement based, maybe some of those are gut based, but you're kind of piling the data on. And then iteration 4 is kind of machine learning based, right? And that's we're looking at all the data we can gather and trying to use that information to determine what the reasons are for churn, or what the red, yellow, green level is ultimately. And I think obviously there's a couple of factors as to why companies use each of those iterations, starting with maturity, but also going to the points of costs and things like that. I think what we're going to see is there'll be a lot more data-driven decisions coming down the road here as a result of the lowering of costs and access to the types of artificial intelligence, machine learning, availability to companies to be able to look at the data, which is really a cool movement forward. One of the other interesting things to me that I thought was when we started talking about data, and we started talking about questions, and he was even saying sometimes you've got to uncover the data that's important to you as a company, right? And that requires going out and talking to customers. And then we brought in the discussion of AI to that, right? And how AI is good at picking up all different types of data if you're having a customer discussion that's beyond the information that you may surface level be talking about. And I think that's another area that's really interesting as you're trying to understand why people are doing things. Trying to uncover that data, I think, is one of the hardest things for us to do as human beings. And having the assistance going forward is going to be interesting.
I was already, I was, and again, if you haven't checked out Ed's courses, go to Udemy, go to Success Hacker. I mean, go find his courses, right? And like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, like the tools he's instructing, his class on it are really like high level math skills, like regression, linear models. And I think to your point though, Kev, we asked him about AI, and you could see that, I think, it's going to have a big impact, right? Because a lot of what we're talking about is taking all these variables to help drive, predict outcomes, Now you can do that on a mass scale, huge scale. You have AI that's doing it, and Ed's already incorporating that in his course. He's already talking about he's redoing his course, and he's going to start talking about generative AI, which I think is super important. The one question I didn't ask Ed, and looking back, maybe I wish I would have asked is, we had Greg Danes on in September, right? And Greg talked about, if you haven't listened to the show, go back and listen to it. Greg's an awesome guest. He talked about 23 churn reasons in 2023, but he talked about, customer sat and NPS have no correlation on churn, right? I wish I would have asked Ed, kind of his thoughts on that. I know he's probably looked at churn a bunch and looked at a lot of those models. I was kind of looking back after the fact, I'm like, oh man, I wish I would have asked Ed that. And so anyway,
it's funny. I had the same thought. That was it. And during the conversation, it did pop in my head. And at the end of the conversation, said, "Any more questions?" And it had popped right out of my head. But yeah, that's a question. As a matter of fact, I think we should try and go back, ask them about it. Maybe let's see if we can get an article out of that or something. Yeah,
I think that would be good. The other question is, and it's a question maybe for Greg is, and this question that I've been thinking about is, he says no correlation, CSAT doesn't correlate to churn. I'm curious how much customer results correlates to customer sat though, right? Because he does talk about customer results being a super important. I am curious if you just look at those two variables, if I get customer results, does my customer sat go up, right? And we didn't ask even Greg about that. So again, there's a lot to unwind here and double click on and really get into this, because I think Greg and Ed, they bring up some really valid points, some really good questions that need further exploring.
Yeah. Maybe a future episode to get them on.
Yeah, well, maybe we're generating some future content here. So, all right, Kev. Well, one question I have for you. So we'll go behind the scenes here. So, Ed, this episode with Ed's going to be coming out in early October, right? We are recording this right before the start of college football season. I want to get you on the record. How many wins for your Clemson Tigers this year? Because now it's on the record, Kev, so we can go back and we can look at it.
Man. Well, regular season, or are we talking
12 regular season games? How many wins are we getting?
I'm hoping. The hope. Realistically, I'm going to go 11-1.
Okay.
An 11-1 season.
All right. If they lose the Duke on Labor Day, Kev, don't. I'm definitely cutting this video and posting it out there for our audience to see.
It's interesting. Opening with Duke, I think, is going to be a tough opening. And then, we got Florida. It's an easier opening than Florida State's got, though.
It is. I know you're like me. You're excited to get it started. Full slate of games this weekend, and so that'll be great. So, Kev, we got a lot of exciting things beyond just football starting. We got the Customer Success Playbook website. Check it out. That should be live. Our Customer Success Playbook LinkedIn page, right? So make sure you go on the LinkedIn page, check us out. Again, we're going to be putting a newsletter out. So again, if you go to the website, you can enter your email so you get on our distribution list. Again, we don't send out a lot of stuff, but the stuff we send out, you want to check out, like our conversation with Ed, Greg Danes, etc. Kev, I miss anything? Anything else we got going on we want to share with the audience?
Well, you didn't give your predictions for Pitt.
Yeah, I am a Pitt fan. I'm going 8-4. 8-4, right? So, right, ho hum, kind of middle of the road. I hope I'm wrong. And I'm hoping 11-1 like you, but I've watched too many Pitt seasons to say that in public. So, anyway, thanks everyone for listening. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, rate us. Check out, connect with Kevin and I. We love connecting and learning from other customer success professionals, right? So at Roman Tremont on LinkedIn, at Kevin Metzger. Again, we have a Customer Success Playbook LinkedIn page as well. And thanks everyone for listening. We really appreciate it.
Keep on playing.